Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Wren. I am a Dean's Ambassador at the UC Riverside School of Public Policy. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to today's special event, One Water Solutions to Western Water Challenges, Creating a Resilient and Reliable Water Future in the Face of Climate Change. We are honored today to have three prominent figures in the field of water management and policy as part of our panel today. This event is a part of the Water Economics and Policy Outreach activities at the UCR School of Public Policy called Water Dialogue, Getting to Know Your Water Agencies and Policy Makers, which was founded by Drs. Mehdi Namadi and Ariel Dinar, and currently led by Dr. Namadi, who's here today. Water policy design and implementation is a process that involves the policymakers, the agencies that apply the policy, and the public that is subject to the policy. California has long been subject to many water policy interventions. Opening a dialogue among the public, the water agencies, and policymakers would enhance the implementation of better and more effective water policies. You can learn more about the Water Dialogue at waterdialogue.ucr.edu. But before we get started, I want to bring up to the stage for some brief remarks the Associate Dean of the UCR School of Public Policy, Dr. Kurt Schwabe.
Thank you, Catherine. Welcome. Catherine is one of our many Dean's Ambassadors here today, both undergraduate public policy majors and Masters of Public Policy graduate students, and I want to thank them for helping make this a success today. Thank you. I also want to thank Mehdi Namadi, Professor Namadi, for putting together a wonderful seminar series this whole year and bringing together distinguished speakers and panelists on timely and policy-relevant topics. And again, I also want to acknowledge our Dean, Anil Diolelekar, the founding Dean of the School of Public Policy, who is retiring this year, actually this month, as Dean of our school. In founding the school, Dean Diolelekar insisted that our focus be on value-driven, evidence-based solutions with the motto, solutions for the region, solutions for the world. Over the past 15 years, we've been working pretty closely with local, regional, state, international, national agencies on collaboratively investigating timely and policy-relevant water-related issues across the environmental, agricultural, and municipal sectors. What we've realized, and what many of you, if not all of you know, is that solving water issues, whether here in California or elsewhere, requires a holistic approach and partnerships across the public, private, and academic sectors. We here at UCR feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to work collaboratively with these agencies, especially our local partners over the past years, Eastern, Western, Jurupa Community Services District, Elsinore Valley, Moulton Niguel, and others, as well as MWD. Finally, while one responsibility of our school is towards value-driven evidence-based research, pedagogy, and outreach, we have a responsibility to continually self-educate and listen to the histories and the people of our areas. We at UCR would like to respectfully acknowledge and recognize our responsibility to the original and current caretakers of the land, water, and air, the Cahuilla, Tongva, Lusano, Serrano peoples, and all of their ancestors and descendants, past, present, and future. Today, this meeting place is home to many indigenous peoples from all around the world, including UCR faculty, staff, and students, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these homelands. Thank you. Now I'd like to pass the mic back to Catherine to introduce our panel and to move on to what you're really here for.
Alrighty, thank you, Associate Dean. Before we move on to the panel, I would like to ask our three guests to please, well, of course, you're already up here. So our panelists will have up to 10 minutes each for remarks. We will go in alphabetical order, and afterwards we will open it up for an audience Q&A for about 15 minutes. If you have any questions, please raise your hand during the Q&A, and I will call on you to pose your question, and we'll have a mic to pass around. My colleague Rachel will help do that. Now, without further ado, I am honored to introduce our three special guests for today's event. First, we have Mr. Adel Hagekhalil, the General Manager and Chief Executive Officer for the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Mr. Hagekhalil is a registered civil engineer and National Board Certified Environmental Engineer, having earned both a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering from the University of Houston, Texas. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Catherine, and great job for all of you for organizing this, and thanks for welcoming us to your home. And also, this brings memory. My daughter graduated from UCR, so I remember those days when I came in, and she's a lawyer now, so she got into some public policy. Great to be with you. It's an honor, and thank you, Mehdi, for reaching out and allowing us. Today, let me get the clicker, if you don't mind. Thanks. Today, I'm going to just share the story of what we're dealing with in the middle of the climate change and how we're working together to create a resilient water future for everyone where no one is left behind. And as you've talked about, it needs holistic solutions. And this is really what we want to share with you today. Just to let you know who Metropolitan is, we are the co-op that was put together across 6 counties, 5,200 square miles, close to 20 million people, 26 member agencies that came together to really serve our region. And I think this co-op needs to continue to work together because we cannot work as individual agencies. We all have to collaborate to build the infrastructure that we need, as we've done in the past when we built the Colorado River Aqueduct and many of the programs, Diamond Valley Lake and others. It's about us working together to move us forward. And we need this more than ever, this collaborative approach that we all work together on it. And we talked about this region, and our goal is to ensure that we provide safe, reliable, resilient water for all. And I add now this with no one left behind. And that's the affordability question that we need to ensure that's addressed. The water supply, as you know, our water comes in from, Metropolitan was about importing water. This is how we were created, to create the Colorado River Aqueduct, to bring water from Lake Mead and from the Colorado River all the way down here. That's what created this great region. But also, we're partners in the State Water Project that brings water from the Bay Delta in Northern California and the Sierras all the way down here. And LA has the LA Aqueduct that brings water also from the Sierras. Right now, 50% of our water is imported. And the good news, 50% is locally sourced. That's a huge shift. Years ago, we were looking at about 3-some million acre feet of water that we need to import. Right now, we're about 1.5 million acre feet of water to support the system. Imagine if we had to deal with 3 million acre feet of water. In these conditions, it would have been very difficult. The drought has been very severe. We've seen a huge impact on us. The conditions are changing. We're seeing hotter, drier days. And what we relied on as water managers over the last 100 years in the snowpack being our storage. And basically the snow comes in, it accumulates, then slowly melts, and basically drains into the rivers and the reservoirs to provide us water. That's no longer there. With the climate change, we're seeing conditions that do not support that. And as you see, that this is a crisis that we're dealing with. We have 3 years of a drought. The Colorado River, for the first time, we have a shortage declaration. We have 20 years of a drought that finally it hit us hard. And you've seen the pictures of Lake Mead. But also, the up in the Sierras, we're seeing 3 years of a drought, a lowest allocation ever. And we're starting the year on a 4th year of a drought. So the question is, how are we going to be able to survive and continue moving forward and provide everyone the water they need? And you can see the temperature and the weather, and you can get that information, but you can tell you it's just the conditions are getting worse and worse and worse. And the California average temperature, you're seeing it's increasing. So what's creating is the water is evaporating, the snow is evaporating, and the dry conditions of the soil. And I'll just give you one example. Back in last year in December, we had good rain and good snow in the Sierras. So we had about 146% of normal snowpack. So we felt good about it. Come to January, February, and March, we had the hottest 3 months. April, that 146% of normal is down to 46%. The same thing is happening, you look at in the Colorado River. Although we're seeing some probably average rainfall, it's not making it to the reservoir. We're seeing 90% of precipitation, but what's making it to the rivers and the reservoirs is close to 30 to 50%. So you can see that we are in a delta and a shortage, and we need to do something different. And these are the conditions I talked about. So what we need to do is figure out how we deal with it. The first thing we need to do is reduce our consumption, our demand use. We've done good in Southern California. We've done good in our region in conserving. That's the reason we are in good shape in storage. We actually, by our conservation efforts and managing water, we're able to store close to over 2.5 million acre feet of water in storage. But what we need to do right now is figure out how we deal with the issue. And some of our regions, especially the region on the western part of Metropolitan, basically that's Virgin and Skagit and parts of LA close to Ventura and Malibu, has one source of water. They have the State Water Project. And with the 3 year of 5% allocation, it became difficult to provide water. We used a lot of our storage and we can't sustain it. So we had to go to health and safety to only provide you essential water to sustain you. And basically what we decided to do is actually declare an emergency by the board in Metropolitan to say, you need to change how you manage water. And everybody has to stretch the water we have available to last us the entire year. So we declared an emergency in April and started in January to say, basically, you can only water your lawn once a week. And some of the agencies chose that location. And to reduce, and our goal was to reduce by 35%. To allow us to stretch the water we have available in storage. The good news is we're able to do it and do it by about 40%. So we actually exceeded. A lot of people were not happy, but they came through and did the right thing. But more needs to be done. And that tells you the areas that we're dealing with. And these are the options we talked about doing, whether enforcing one-day outdoor. And that created a lot of dialogue with folks, which is good. We needed that dialogue with the community, with the policymakers and others about this is not normal. We need to act. These are conditions that need extraordinary actions that we need to do. And this is a discussion I had with you here about the snowpack. That's the example I was telling you. I mean, what we're seeing is a complete change. The blue is the normal snowpack that we see. The other line you see is what we saw last year. And right now we're on the same track. And you see we're seeing conditions we're seeing early rain, early snow that's going to be melting. And we need to do something different. And we are on the same track. And this is the same thing here with, I'm not sure you can see the numbers. The same thing happened with the Colorado River. Basically, we're not seeing the same runoff, even with the same rain. And that's because of the evaporation. That's because of the heat. That's because of the dry conditions. And this is what we're seeing right now. The same thing is happening with our reservoir, Lake Mead, and Lake Powell. It's declining, causing a huge issue. And this is a huge concern right now, is negotiating. As you know, the Bureau of Reclamation declared a water shortage, and they asked us to reduce our consumption from the Colorado River by 2 to 4 million acre feet of water. So we have 15 million acre feet. Actually, it's over allocated. So actually, it's about 12. And we need to cut it by 2 to 4. So we're negotiating right now between all the states, the 7 states and the country of Mexico, of how we can reduce our consumption so we can prevent this decline in levels, because that decline will cause huge impacts on California and the other states. California, for example, will have a huge impact on power generation, renewable energy, but also certain levels in the requirements of managing the Colorado River, the DCP, Delta, the Drought Contingency Plan. It triggers certain reductions that we have to do. So when you reach certain level, in Lake Mead, then you have to do cuts. And that can be huge. And then we've invested a lot of resources over time to put what we call storage, ICS, incidental storage in Lake Mead from our savings. But now, after certain levels, if levels drops to 1020, 1025, it creates us that we cannot access that water anymore. So there's a lot of issues and concerns, but I think we offered, as you know, California offered a 400,000 acre feet of water cuts to the Bureau of Reclamation. The Bureau of Reclamation is working on conservation money to allow people to fallow land. We have partnership with the farmers. And there's a lot of work ahead, but there's more money on the table even to do permanent actions, including removing grass, removing non-functional turf, and actually reducing our consumption permanently. And that's a discussion from the commissioner and the reduction. Now what we need to do is look at how can we deal with this issue permanently for the future. We did good for the last 100 years. Now the future that we have, what do we do for the next 100 years? And it's about really addressing the climate change. And the collaborative one water approach that I talk about, which is including community, collaboration, local water supply, storage, and smart water management. And what we're doing is looking at ways of how we prepare ourselves. And we built 3 aqueducts in the past. We need to build the 4th aqueduct, which is a combination. It's a virtual aqueduct. It's a combination of many things coming together. So what you're going to be seeing us working on is conservation is going to be an anchor. We need to continue conserving. We are maximizing, doubling down on rebate and incentives for folks. We're working with the board and many of our member agencies on addressing non-functional turf, and we're looking at ways to really stand that up. And we did a resolution recently at the board to encourage folks to do model ordinances. But also we signed up with other municipal agencies across the 7 states to agree on best practices for water management. And this is just recent, I think 30-some agencies already signed on. But also the solution is finding local water supply, and that's a picture of Eastern here, celebrating their brackish water treatment. Everything we need to look at. Local water supply means finding every drop, capturing every drop, reusing it, storing it, and having it available. And these are the discussions we are looking at. I think storage is going to be the biggest issue that we need to deal with, because when you have the rain and when you have water, we need to find how we can capture that water, how we can move it in the system and store it underground and above ground. And the biggest project that I know Director Record is very proud of is Diamond Valley Lake, which is not far here in Hemet. When it was built in 2000, everybody was questioning why you build that kind of project. This project of 800,000 acre-feet of water is saving us today. And that's kind of the system we need to do. We need to see how we can capture water and put it in the ground, whether it's imported water when we have it, because we're going to have heavy rains, like we did in 2017 and 2019. We need to have what's called smart water management, figure out how we can capture that water, move it in the system, and store it in different places, whether it's above ground, underground. We have in our basin, Southern California, over 1.5 million acre-feet of available space capacity to store water. But we have to all agree how we can put it in and take it out. Also, recycling water. We have leading in Metropolitan, the largest recycled water project in the world. It's 150 million gallons of wastewater is going to be treated and made into pure water in Carson. If you have not been there, welcome to go and do a visit with our team. It's going to be taken from there and distributed across our service area to put it into the ground so we can have it available for use. But we want to expedite this project, so we're working around the area of Carson to find out early successes. And we are looking at about 40,000 acre-feet of potable water being used that we're going to replace with recycled water by 2028. The good news is we were able to get approval from the state. They gave us a legislation that was signed by the governor to give us progressive design build ability to expedite delivery of this project. And that takes a lot of collaboration to get it done. And we're moving on it pretty fast. And we got some support financially from the state. But at the end of the day, it's all about collaboration. It's all about partnerships, all about coming together and building these relationships that we need to do to move us forward. And really, at the end of the day, none of us will know the value of water until we don't have it. And none of us want to get there. So our job is to make sure we work with you, with everyone, to ensure that people understand that these conditions, none of us want to get to a place where you turn the faucet, you don't have water. So our responsibility in Metropolitan to ensure we have reliable water supply for everyone, but also ensure affordability of that water. These are very difficult issues, public policy issues, that we hope that you can help us resolve and help provide us the feedback. And I want to just turn it back to Catherine, but the example you see from Joe and Easton is example of one water. Example of when I went and met with Joe and learned more about what Easton is doing is this diversified water supply, diversified portfolio, collaboration to ensure that they're working with other agencies to move the brine so they can do this brackish water treatment. So I'm so proud that we're able to be here with Eastern and to really with you and really have this discussion and we're open for questions afterwards. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Mr. Joe Mouawad, who is the Eastern Municipal Water District's General Manager. He began his career at EMWD in August 2006 as the Director of Engineering. He received his Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from California State Polytechnic University, Pomona, and a Master of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of California, Los Angeles. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Catherine. And I just want to thank UCR for giving us the opportunity to share with you the information today. As Adel mentioned, it is about collaboration. It's about partnership. And I'm very proud of the collaboration and partnership we've had over many years with UC Riverside. We have engaged Professor Schwabi, Professor Mead, and others at UCR over many years to get their input, feedback on water policy issues, on rate issues, on many issues that truly face us that we need to navigate as we try to best address the impacts of the current drought conditions and really the new normal. So with that, I want to build on Adel's discussion. I want to take a little deeper dive. When we talk about water use efficiency, what is exactly that we've done over the last many years to achieve that high water use efficiency out here in Riverside County and specifically within Eastern? And also, what are the local investments that we have made to diversify the local resources? Adel mentioned that overall the region has reduced its need on imported water supply. Well, what is it that we've done, frankly, not just the last few years, but over the last several decades that we've done to invest in those local supplies and diversify our portfolio? But before we do all that, I want to give you a little bit of overview on who we are as Eastern Municipal Water District. We were established in 1950. We serve about a population of 1 million people in western Riverside County, essentially the area from Merino Valley all the way down to Temecula and Murrieta, and also from Hemet San Jacinto on the east all the way to the Interstate 215 corridor. We're unique in that we're primarily a retailer, but we also provide wholesale service to others, meaning to cities and other agencies within our service area. We provide water, wastewater, and recycled water services. As Adel mentioned, we are one of 26 members of the Metropolitan Water District, who is our wholesaler. One key metric or key item I want to show is we're only 38% built out in our region based on the land use plans approved by the county and the cities. That's significant. Not only do we need to plan to meet today's challenges, but we need to make certain we're able to accommodate growth, which has still moved on and it still occurs at a very high rate within our region. So this slide gives you perspective on our service area that I described earlier. We are governed by 5 members of our board. Director Randy Record serves as vice president of our board, and he was past chairman of the Metropolitan Water District. We are the 6th largest public water utility in the state. We have over 600 employees with a budget of over $465 million. About $100 million a year is invested in infrastructure, in expanding our water, sewer, and recycled water system. And we have currently over 180 active projects right now in various stages of planning, engineering, construction. So we talked about diversifying our portfolio and reducing our reliance on import supply. This slide really gives you a good perspective. Back in 1990, EMWD served a population of just over 350,000 people. Based on the 2020 census data, we're about 900,000. That's more than double, almost triple the population. But yet, our reliance on imported supply has reduced to about 50. And I apologize, the percentages are missing here, but per the pie chart, it's about 50% local, 50% imported. It's not just the percentages. It's the actual net volume of water we import. We are importing less water today than we were importing several decades ago, although we've had more than double the population in our service area. Recycled water is key to that local resiliency, local water supply resiliency. We use all the recycled water we generate, every drop we use. That's huge. That's taken many, many years to get to this point in our resiliency. We also have brackish desalination that Adel mentioned. That's a significant part of our portfolio, along with other local resources that I will describe shortly. So what are some of the efficiency initiatives that we've undertaken to get to where we are? If you look at what, often a metric that we in the water world use is gallons per person or per capita per day. And back in 1999, it was around 215 gallons per capita per day. And if you look at where we are today, we're about 125. That's about 42% reduction overall in use per person. And we were able to achieve that through various initiatives, including the rollout and implementation of our water budget-based tiered rate structure that helped us achieve some of the reductions back in the 2006-2007 timeframe. But also conservation. It's recycled water, converting potable water irrigation to recycled water. It's putting in drip irrigation. It's removing non-functional turf that Dr. Record is going to talk to and others. It's everything. It's all the above. There is no one single thing I can point to say that this is what did it. It's doing everything that has allowed us to improve our efficiency. I mentioned the water budgets and tiered rates. That's key. And essentially, we establish a unique water budget for every customer in our service area. Based on the number of occupants in the house, we look at their needs. We look at the outdoor irrigated area, and we develop a unique budget based on our lowest tier of cost of water, which is up to 20%. The rest, up to the 100%, is tier 2. Now, if the customers use more than their 100% of the budget, they pay tier 3. And then, of course, if they're wasteful in tier 4, they pay an escalated rate. This tiered rate structure has been very helpful in signaling to our customers to use water efficiently. And today, we have rolled out last year technology online where customers can monitor how much water are they using every day. Are they on track within their budget? It helps inform them to be able to be efficient, to be able to stay within the water budget. But this has been a big part of our water use efficiency. Also, we focused on outdoor water use efficiency. I mentioned that we use all of our recycled water. Essentially, everything used inside the house comes back to us. And we use 100% recycled water. So to us, ratcheting down of indoor water use, it's a zero-sum proposition. It's the outdoor irrigation efficiency that could potentially help. 60% of an average household water is used outdoors. That's where our focus is. That's where a lot of our efforts are focused. What you'll see here is over the years, we have continued to raise the bar relative to outdoor water use. And as many of you are aware, in Riverside County, the county and all of the land use agencies have adopted a model ordinance. Essentially, no non-functional turf is installed in front yards. No new development is approved through the entitlement phase with non-functional turf in front yards. But in addition, we've reduced the water budget for outdoors. Now all new development is at 50% of ET, which is the factor that we utilize to establish the water budget, meaning that they have a water budget to be able to irrigate outdoors, but not to irrigate non-functional turf. They can have functional turf in the backyard, but not in the front yard. This and many other initiatives is the reason why we've been able to accommodate growth as it has continued in Riverside County. Also, our conservation program, our educational program, providing customers with information online, resources. We've been providing smart controllers to our customers, landscape evaluations. We'll come out to your house and look at how you use the water. We'll provide you with drip irrigation kits if you want to install. All those things. Also providing you with the information on what's acceptable palette for drought-tolerant landscaping. One thing that we're also very proud of is our efforts on non-functional turf. And you know, we can spend the whole hour talking about everything we've done, but I did want to highlight one thing, is ongoing effort with UC Riverside. One of the things that we found with our customers is the financial hurdle to overcome to convert and remove non-functional turf to acceptable drought-tolerant landscaping. As Adel mentioned, jointly with Metropolitan, we do provide a current subsidy. Metropolitan provides $2 a square foot. We add another $1 at Eastern, so it's $3 a square foot for residential properties. Well, sometimes that doesn't cover the cost, and there's added cost to convert to drought-tolerant landscaping. We want this transition to be permanent, so we've engaged, as I mentioned, with UCR. What we're looking at is if there is, in effect, a saving of water by removing non-functional turf, then the customer is going to see a reduction in their water bill. Well, could we use that premise then to look at on-bill financing? Essentially, theoretically, we would fund the upfront cost to convert someone's landscaping from non-functional turf to drought-tolerant landscaping, and they would then make us whole financially through an assessment. To them, because they're using less water, it's net zero cost to them. They're not seeing the difference. And once they've paid us back over a period of time, 6, 7 years, however that is, we'll have to figure those details out, then they would see a reduction in their water bill, because at that point, the assessment would go away. So we think there's an opportunity here to really look at a win-win scenario for us to establish essentially a financing mechanism. And the initial results that we're hearing back from Professor Schwabi and Mehdi is that combined with irrigation efficiencies as well as non-functional turf, it could be as much as 30% reduction in water usage. That's tremendous. So we're really excited. We're going to continue working with ECR to see what that yields. In addition, we're seeking state funding to enhance that subsidy that I mentioned earlier from $3 a square foot to $4. We're very hopeful. The state has established $75 million for these types of programs, and we've been very active in engaging the state on our efforts. So quickly, investing in local supplies. Groundwater replenishment, groundwater banking, it's huge. As Adel mentioned, when the water is there, we got to be able to move it quickly, and we got to store it. We got to store it above ground, below ground, wherever we can, so we can navigate the drought conditions. And we've invested significantly over many years. Over in San Jacinto, we have a groundwater basin, and we have the capacity to store additional water up to an additional 21,000 acre feet that we can add to that basin. So we've built a 40-acre replenishment basin in addition to other recharge facilities, and we are essentially completing the program to be able to not only store the water, but then extract that water when we need it during extended drought periods. Also, we're very proud of this program, working on the Paris North Groundwater Program, essentially around the March Air Reserve Base. There's historically been contamination, groundwater contamination, and for that reason, no one has actually pumped that water. So there's elevated groundwater conditions around the base in the area. It's a significant cost to treat the water, to remove the contaminants, but we've been successful in advocating to the state, and we've received $62 million from the State Water Resource Control Board, coupled with our match of another $62 million to advance this program. We're currently under construction. It's going to initially bring forward another 4,000 acre feet of local water supply that is otherwise unusable. And we have also partnered with Western and the base to make that water available to the base, or some of it available to the base. Adel mentioned groundwater desalination. We just brought online this year our third brackish groundwater desalination. Combined, the 3 desalters serve 30,000 households locally, potable water. That's huge. And that's, again, brackish groundwater that is otherwise unusable, that we're able to capitalize it and leverage. Recycled water system, as I mentioned, we use 100% of our recycled water. It's really second to none when you look at across the country in terms of other agencies or other regions and how much of their recycled water that they generate that they use. We use all of it, which is key. Because in the absence of using that recycled water for agricultural irrigation, for environmental habitat in San Jacinto, for schools, for parks, you name it, industrial, in the absence of that, we would have to import more water. So to us, it's been a key part of our local water supply resiliency. But beyond that, we're also looking at future use of recycled water. And what we're currently working on is our version of what's called indirect potable reuse, or purified water replenishment, essentially taking an amount of the recycled water, purifying it through advanced microfiltration, oxidation, and then recharging the groundwater basin. We have advanced that project. In fact, this year, we received $10 million grant funding from the Bureau of Reclamation. We have completed all of our environmental and permitting, and we're in final design. We're really excited because this project, coupled with our water banking program that I mentioned earlier and other replenishment programs, continues to enhance our local resources and will continue to make us less dependent on import supplies. And with that, really what my final thought is, there's not one single initiative. There's not one single thing. It is truly an all of the above approach. But I'm confident we're able to do it. If we're able to do it out here, I think all of us in Southern California are able to do it. There's a lot of opportunity for us to collaborate, to advance. We need the commitment, and we need the consistency going forward, but there is tremendous amount of opportunities for us to continue to expand our water supply portfolio. With that, thank you, Catherine.
All right. And last but not least, Mr. Randy Record is the EMWD Board Director for Division 3 and the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California Board Member. He earned a bachelor's degree in agricultural management from California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo. And he was appointed to the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California Board of Directors in January of 2003 and served as chairman from 2014 to 2018. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you. It's great to be here today. I'm a board member, so I don't really do any work. These guys do the work, and we're big picture policy, and where do we go from here? I will say that I'm very proud of both of these organizations. I think Met does a great job. I think Eastern is the premier member agency of Metropolitan. No offense to Western, but we really do it all. So my perspective is kind of statewide because I've been on the Met board. This is my 20th year, Eastern 22. I also had the opportunity to serve in leadership at Aqua in the early 2010 era, which gave me a perspective throughout the state and really helped me meet a lot of growers and really understand better what's going on. So you can see Eastern's key actions, and we've really been out front. A lot of this started way before Joe and my time. The reason that we're able to recycle all our water is because actions that guys took a long time ago before us. And maybe it's an advantage that we're not on the coast, so we can't discharge. And obviously having a SAPA pipeline helps us utilize that water because we have somewhere to go with the waste. Turf grass management really started intensively in 2017 in that drought when Metropolitan committed about $400 million to remove turf and kind of change what's acceptable in California, Southern California. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of non-functional turf that drives a lot of us crazy because the water's running down the street every day and we just can't do that anymore. We've been working with the state. We're pleased that the state board enacted a policy that says you can't irrigate non-functional turf with potable water. Unfortunately, it was a quick process, and so there were some exemptions for trees and things like that. And I think I'm seeing some new trees planted in some long-time non-functional turf areas to maybe get around that. But the state of Nevada is setting a great example, and they've passed legislation that in the Southern Nevada Water Authority area, you cannot irrigate non-functional turf with potable water. And we've made a little pass at state legislation last year, and I think there's going to be a big effort to do it in the next session. So we just don't have that option anymore. The idea that the only time that turf gets walked on is when you harvest the green waste is crazy. I mean, we're bringing that water over the Tehachapi's from the Colorado River, treating it, and we just can't do that. And even if it's recycled water, that's not a good use for that water supply. Non-functional turf, to me, doesn't have a place. There are so many other things that we can do that make more sense. The biggest thing for me is the message it sends. If you're irrigating grass that you can't use, you're sending the message that everything's great, no problem with water supply, and that's not the case. We all know that. We'll get to question and answers, but I appreciate your feedback. State water priorities.
Our board members get paid $300 a meeting.
Okay, can I finish my presentation? Would that be okay?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Support significant investments in infrastructure, water supply strategy. We've been working on conveyance in the Bay Delta, the 09 legislation of co-equal goals. 3 administrations ago, and we're still doing environmental, still trying to get there. Very frustrating, but it's even more important now because we understand that the storm events are fewer and far between, but they're of much greater severity or water deliverance. So the conveyance and the storage are really important. And local supply projects, Joe went through what we're doing at Eastern. Not much low-hanging fruit left there, and we're proud of the fact that we've pretty much done it all and continue to do that. Increased funding for water use efficiency. As Joe said, we're reaching a point where if we continue to mandate that there's less water used indoors, it's starting to impact our sewage collection system, our treatment plants. And as Joe said, we use all our recycled water, so it's taken away from our water supply. So lots of opportunities outdoors. That's where the focus needs to be. Outdoor water use efficiency, reducing water loss, and oppose legislation that further reduces indoor water use. I do want to talk about recycled water because I think that's the biggest opportunity that we have. I believe in the state of California, about 30% of water that's available to be utilized a second time isn't, or is, and 70% isn't. It gets discharged to the ocean or somewhere else. We just can't do that anymore. The reason that we're able to supply recycled water to growers at Eastern is because we believe that the person generating the sewage should pay the cost to see that through to the ultimate use, whether it's discharge or whatever. There's a cost related to that. So if a sewer generator pays a little bit of money, then the water can be priced at a level for ag that's affordable, and it gets ag off of groundwater, which saves our potable supplies. What Met's doing in Carson is a great example of that. There's just too much water that gets imported, used once, and then it's gone. So we really need to focus on that. And again, you're tired of hearing me saying it, but I'm really proud of what we've done at Eastern. One of the big challenges that we have at Metropolitan is our rate structure, because we are 70% of our revenue comes from water sales, but we have 70% fixed costs. That doesn't add up. We continue to pay people not to use water, which, we need to be as conservation minded as we can, but you reach a point where there's got to be another way to provide a revenue stream to do what we need to do. So that's a big challenge that we've worked on before, but I think it's really coming to a head. Climate change. That's why we're in the situation that we're in. I think we all know that. Increased temperatures and less reliable precipitation. So what can we do? I'm proud of the fact that several years ago, when it looked like we were going to have a twin tunnel project, Metropolitan went out and bought 20,000 acres of land in the Bay Delta for two reasons. The number one reason then was, we know we need to build these tunnels. We need to do a lot of work there. We need to do soil boring and see what's down there. We need a place to put the spoils when we dig the tunnels. But we weren't sure that that's where the tunnels would go, or if they would ever be built, which even seems more, in question today. But something needed to change in the environment in the Bay Delta. And what Metropolitan has done is repurpose what's going on there. And it's very exciting. We've had some presentations that just look really phenomenal. Instead of farming low value crops that oxidize the soil, release carbon, we're now regenerating soil, and the soil is coming back, sequestering carbon. Lots of opportunities for revenue for Metropolitan, but also kind of changing the dynamic of what's going on in the Bay Delta. And it's that co-equal goals of water supply reliability and restoration. Also in the Palo Verde Valley, we have a fallowing program there. Metropolitan has bought significant acreage over the years. We're now working on a regenerative ag program so that we can make that land that we fallow more productive by planting cover crops. There's opportunities again to sequester carbon. So I think that because of Metropolitan's size and the financial ability that we have, we can acquire big pieces of ground and we can make changes on behalf of our ratepayers that need to happen going forward. So I'm very excited that we're on that path and we're doing that at Eastern. In the 90s, at one of our treatment plants, we developed some wetlands. The idea was that if you run water through these tules and other plants, it will polish the water, take some of the nutrients out, also provides great habitat. I mean, we have over 120 different bird species, local birds and migrating birds. We've had people from 30 different countries come and look at what we're doing. Also, by Lake Paris, partnership with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, we have a wetlands area, essentially a wildlife area. As far as I know, it's the only wildlife area that exists because of recycled water. And so there's another area where habitat restoration, climate change mitigation is really important, and I'm proud that we're able to do that. So a lot of challenges going forward, although I think we're up to it. I'm proud that for the most part, water agencies, in my mind, at least the ones I work with, have kind of missed the dysfunction that we see in the federal government and sometimes local government. And I hope it stays that way because our ratepayers depend on us, and I think we're up to the challenge. So thanks for your time.
Okay. At this time, we will now transition to our audience Q&A. There's going to be a quick change. Dr. Schwabe is going to lead our Q&A for this afternoon. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and my colleague Rachel in the back will take my microphone and pass it around. And now I will have Dr. Schwabe come up and lead the Q&A. Okay.
Thank you, Catherine. So in the interest of time, we have a lot of people that ask questions. We'll start out with one question per person. Let's keep it to questions for right now, and out of respect for other people who might want to ask questions. If you don't get your question answered by 1 o'clock, we'll have some food and interactions, informal interactions, and you can talk to the speakers or whoever else after that. So let's begin. Who wants to ask a question?
Hi, Chris Thornburg. I'm the director of the UC Riverside Center for Economic Forecasting and Development. This is all exciting stuff, but from a more global solution, you know, we talk about, for example, the use of ag, water for ag, and while I appreciate ag is an important part of our state economy, an important part of inland economies, at the same time, there's some pretty outrageous abuses of the ag water system. For example, right now, California and Arizona have a record export of hay. We talk about non-usable turf. There's nothing more non-usable than putting hay on a boat and shipping it to Saudi Arabia or Korea or Japan to feed livestock over there. And the only reason they do that is because when they buy the land here, they get this insanely subsidized water. So you have California ratepayers paying a tremendous amount of money for all this recycled, while Saudi Arabian cows are getting California water at a super cheap rate. Is there no real conversation about how to change this particular dynamic? Because, boy, that would save a whole bunch of Colorado River water.
So I don't relish going up against a PhD in economy, but, you know, we've talked before. The other reason that works is because we import so much stuff that we've got all these containers going back empty, so that the freight back to Saudi Arabia is a lot cheaper than it would be otherwise. Well, okay. So, I mean, you ask a grower in Imperial and they say, well, without that, what does our trade balance look like? And that's not going to solve that. I understand it. But your question was, are there conversations about that? Not really, but I think they're coming, and I think they probably may come to a head next week. It's getting so desperate. I mean, we all saw how almonds got beat up a gallon per nut, and I think it's coming. You know, I hate to start telling people what they can grow and not grow. It is interesting that I've read a couple of articles lately that even growers in Imperial are saying our water's too cheap. It's ridiculous. If it doesn't have any value, then you don't use it right. So I guess it's coming, but nothing really serious or long-lasting at this moment.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of discussion around it right now. And I think the last thing that Randy mentioned is actually people, farmers paying for the water. I mean, during the QSA and other things, I think there was discussion. If I recall, Randy, I think what I'm hearing is about people paying for water that we can invest somehow. But I think that also there is a new technology on farming. I mean, there's a lot of vertical farming discussed. No, I understand, but I agree, but for vegetables that are critical to our... But then if you start looking at how you're going to make the farmers whole, there is also the cost of water, but also there is potential other uses of the land that can bring revenue, and we need to figure out how we can stand up some other things. Just look at a solar farm, right? Solar farm, the revenue from an acre, if you do it right, is about $40,000 an acre. The revenue from alfalfa is about $100 an acre, right? So if we do it right, there's some ideas, but we actually talked about potentially there's some tough decisions that have to be made, but some of it is not as easy as local decisions. A lot of it could be a global discussion. But I think we need to continue looking for ways to partner with the farmers and find ways. I mean, we talked about some seasonal fallowing or seasonal farming. We did that with Bard down in Yuma and some others. And maybe there's opportunities in every place, but it's we need to also make sure that the cost of water is real.
Well, you don't have to let them make a buy; you can let them sell it. Same idea.
Okay, I'll take my question. Thanks, excellent presentations. Adel, you talked about how we have to see a huge reduction in Colorado River water over the next, say, 20 years. Randy, you talked about the financial implications of that, and so it brings up the issue of affordability. And so, if you're going to be making less revenue from selling the water and the fixed costs pretty much stay the same, how do you make that up? And Joe, you're right in the middle of it. You're on the front line with 30% of Californians are under 200% of the federal poverty level. How do you get out of that issue? How do you deal with affordability, given that for water quality reasons and for selling less water, water rates have to go up to some extent. Any ideas or thoughts on how do you deal with that from all three of you?
Well, maybe I'll kick off the response, but you're right, Professor Schwabe. I think the reality is that inexpensive water going forward, we don't have any additional inexpensive water going forward. The solutions we're looking at, and we're looking at all solutions throughout, be it the initiatives that I described earlier. I know there's also a focus on ocean desalination, which is very costly, and to me, that's something that needs to be looked at and vetted financially. But frankly, to keep the cost affordable or relatively affordable, especially for our disadvantaged communities, the state and possibly the federal agencies need to think about their investments in solutions long term. Many of you are aware, but the state water system was designed and constructed over 40 years ago. The reservoirs that we're talking about, the conveyance system, at the time, no one really understood, no one knew about the impacts of climate change. So what we need today is adaptation of that state system, and to keep it at a reasonable cost to the ratepayers. Sacramento and Washington need to think about significant investment in modernizing our water system. I think water rates are still going to go up. That's just a reality. I mean, it's not just the fact that we need to invest in these solutions, but frankly, we look around, we look at cost of chemicals, cost of energy, cost of labor. Everywhere you look, there's significant inflationary impacts on commodities and everything we do. So the reality is, unfortunately, water cost is going up. Now, the good news is today, a gallon of water is a fraction of a penny. It's 0.003 on average. I mean, water is still incredibly affordable And we've worked with UCR on water affordability issues, and we've looked at water affordability relative to other discretionary expenses, if you will, or how to use discretionary income. And frankly, water is very affordable compared to other services that a customer pays for, whether it's a cell phone or cable TV, or I mean, we've looked at all those things. So to me, we're relatively in a good position relative to water costs, but to your point, there needs to be significant investment.
100% is right now we're investing at the rate of affordability, and we can't do that. It doesn't meet what we need to do. So the federal government, state government has to step up. There is a lot of help for the power side and a similar program, and we advocated when I was the president of NACWA, National Association of Clean Water Agencies. That was a big deal, is because agencies are not investing in the infrastructure because you're doing it to ensure people stay, that commodity is affordable. And that means you reduce your investment and what you need to do, and that what got us a lot of times behind on our investment in infrastructure and maintenance of infrastructure. So we need a new business model of how we do that. And also, as the local governments and retailers have done this tier structure, can we apply the same tier structure to wholesale? And also, is that something that we need to do? So, because we're going to be creating new, more expensive water to meet the demand, but it can be that expensive water can be blended and applied across the board. It needs to be looked at differently. And I think there's ways we can do this as part of a new business model where if your consumption stays at a certain level with an allocation, then that rate stays with that based on the amount of water we have available to us. But if you have to go into recycled water, then you have to go into desal, brackish water. That is expensive. So if we create allocation across the board, maybe there's new ideas we create. And the biggest issue also we're struggling with is, I know Joe talks about it, is when people conserve, they're hoping to see a reduction in their water bill. And what happens, it doesn't come in. And they get basically, why am I doing what I'm doing? So it's kind of something that we all have to deal with. And it's not just on us, it's also working with the federal government and state and figure out new ways to do this.
A fascinating presentation. I really was quite impressed with the breadth and depth of your presentations, and it clearly the water districts are doing a lot. One quick question. I mean, I really do think that if you look at, again, when I talk about globally, you look at water consumption in the United States relative to other countries. Per capita water consumption in the United States is by a factor of 20, 30 times what it is in many countries around the world, including developed countries in Europe, Japan. And I think the basic problem really boils down to price. I think water is just priced relative, not only relative to other goods, but also relative to how it is priced in the rest of the world. Water is priced too low in the United States, and so there is a tendency to just misallocate water consumption. And you see this in Riverside. I mean, I'm astonished at how people maintain English-style gardens in Riverside, even with the water shortages and the climate change threatening our water supplies. And all of this simply reflects the fact that at the end of the day, water is still very inexpensively priced for people to make some serious cuts in their consumption.
Just want to talk about one thing it's a big issue for me is bottled water, right? People are willing to go to the store. There's still lack of education on the quality of the water we have in our system. We have the best water coming out of our taps. But people still will go out and spend $2 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon. Sometimes if you go to the airport, it's probably, I don't know how much is a bottle now at the airport. And when we talk about increasing cost, it's not resonating. So we need to do a lot of education and figure out how much you can actually save by not using bottled water or taxing bottled water. I know we talked about it in the old days, about taxing this, but I think there's an education that you're willing to pay, 50 cents or $1 if you buy it from wherever you're buying it, but you're not willing to pay the cent or so that comes in. So there's a lot of education, and also there was some article 2 days ago about trust and the water quality, and we need to really deal with that head on. It should not be a question about the water quality that we have in our country, and especially in our service area.
Perhaps what I could also add is I think it's a conversation we need to be having. But one thing to recognize in terms of water consumption relative to other countries, or frankly the differences between this area in Riverside and highly dense urban centers, is the fact that there's a different way of life here in terms of single-family residential units, frankly being the dominant type of customers that we have. I think we need to recognize that. We need to recognize that water consumption in such a setting, suburbia, if you will, is very different than a downtown urban center. And I don't know if it's fair to say that everyone across the board needs to use the same amount of water, because there's a difference in the way of life. And we need to acknowledge that, and I think we need to take that in consideration as we understand how we can be more efficient. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. You saw everything that we're working on. Our focus is outdoor water use efficiency. But I do want to go back for a minute when we talk about cost of water. As Director Record mentioned, 70% of the recycled water today is discharged into the ocean. If we talk about low-hanging fruit, if we talk about water that's already been treated, that's available for us to offset irrigation demands, that to us is the logical thing to do, is capture and reuse water that essentially is being discharged to offset more costly water. There are things we can do to mitigate the impacts, the cost impact to our customers. That's one of them. I shared with you a lot of the initiatives we've undertaken, including groundwater desalination. The way we've been able to bring that forward and have it affordable to our customers, in fact, it's competitive with imported water cost, is through state grant funding. We're very focused on securing grant funding. Essentially, we see that as bringing back taxes or tax revenue that our constituents send up to Sacramento. We want to bring that investment back locally. It's capturing those types of grant funding incentives, both from the feds and Sacramento, that allows us to keep such programs relatively affordable with imported supplies.
And it is now 1 o'clock, so that is the end of our Q&A. Fortunately, that is all the time we have. But before we transition to our reception, I just want to express on behalf of the UCR School of Public Policy our deepest gratitude to Mr. Hagekhalil, Mr. Mouawad, and Mr. Record for being here today and taking time out of your busy schedules. We really appreciate it. And thank you as well to our audience members for being with us today. We hope you all will enjoy us at our event on Tuesday, December 14th, when the UCR School of Public Policy hosts the next installment of the water seminar series. Does a farm size matter for participating in a land fallowing policy? Evidence from China. You can learn more about events like these hosted by the School of Public Policy by visiting our website at spp.ucr.edu. While you're there, you can also learn about our Master of Public Policy program and our newly launched combined BA MPP. We also have a podcast episode on innovative solutions for the water crisis that you can listen to, and other podcast episodes by going to spp.ucr.edu/podcast. At this point, we welcome everyone to please enjoy some delicious food at the back of the room and to mingle with each other for the next 30 minutes. Thank you, everyone, and we hope you enjoy the reception.